He only meant to help a pregnant woman struggling with heavy luggage up 3 flights of stairs. But when Felix Cole discovers that the grateful stranger he assisted is actually Lucia Stone, the mysterious owner of Cedar Heights Hotel, where he's worked the night shift for 2 years, everything changes. But that's not the shocking part. The shocking part comes when Lucia reveals why she's been secretly watching him work, why she specifically requested him for the overnight shifts, and how their connection runs deeper than either of them ever imagined. This isn't just a story about a chance encounter between an employee and his boss. It's about second chances, the power of kindness, and how sometimes the people we're meant to help are actually the ones destined to save us. If stories of unexpected connections and life-changing moments speak to your heart, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single story that reminds us sometimes the most ordinary acts of kindness can unlock the most extraordinary destinies. Now let's begin. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The elevator at Cedar Heights Hotel had been broken for 3 days, and Felix Cole was getting tired of apologizing to guests about the inconvenience. Not that many guests complained directly to him. Most night shift maintenance workers remained invisible to the steady stream of business. Travelers and weekend tourists who passed through the elegant lobby. But Felix noticed everything. The frustrated sighs, the pointed glances at the out-of-order sign, the way people's shoulders sagged when they realized they'd have to climb 4 flights of stairs with their luggage. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, when everything changed, though Felix wouldn't understand the significance until much later. He was mopping the marble floors of the lobby, the familiar scent of lemon cleaner mixing with the subtle lavender air freshener that somehow made Cedar Heights feel more like a home than a hotel. The lobby was dimmed for the evening, with only the warm amber lights casting long shadows across the burgundy carpet and polished wood surfaces. Felix had always found this hour peaceful. The chaos of check-ins was over. The late-night stragglers hadn't arrived yet, and he could work in the kind of quiet that let his mind wander. Cedar Heights wasn't the fanciest hotel in Millbrook Valley, but it had character. Built in the 1920s, it retained its old-world charm with crystal chandeliers, ornate crown molding, and a grand staircase that curved upward like something from a movie set. Felix had been working here for exactly 2 years, 1 month and 16 days. Not that he was counting, but when you work the graveyard shift, you tend to mark time differently. The night hours had become his sanctuary after losing his job at the packaging plant and going through a custody battle that drained both his savings and his faith in the system. His 6-year-old son, Jamie, stayed with Felix every other weekend, and 2 nights during the week, and the night shift schedule worked perfectly for their arrangement. Felix could pick Jamie up from after-school care, spend the evening helping with homework and reading bedtime stories, then head to work once Jamie was safely asleep at his apartment. It wasn't the life Felix had planned, but it was stable, honest. Work that paid the bills and kept a roof over their heads. What Felix didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that his every move during those late-night shifts had been carefully observed. From the security office on the 2nd floor, someone had been watching the way he treated every guest with genuine respect, how he went out of his way to help elderly visitors with their bags, how he always remembered the names of the regular business travelers, and how he never ever cut corners on his work, even when no one was around to notice. The hotel's mysterious owner had remained exactly that, mysterious. In 2 years, Felix had never seen Lucia Stone in person. He knew she existed because his paychecks bore her signature, and occasionally the day manager would mention Ms. Stone's preferences for this or that operational detail. but she was like a ghost who left evidence of her presence without ever materializing. The staff whispered that she was young for someone who owned such a successful property, that she'd inherited it under tragic circumstances, and that she preferred to manage everything from a distance. Some said she lived in a penthouse suite on the top floor that guests never saw. Others claimed she had homes in 3 different cities and rarely visited Millbrook Valley at all. Felix had never been particularly curious about his employer's personal life. He'd learned the hard way that it was better to focus on doing good work and staying under the radar. After his divorce and the complications that followed, he'd embraced the kind of anonymity that comes with working when most of the world is asleep. The night shift suited his temperament. Fewer people meant fewer complications, fewer chances for things to go wrong. But as he pushed his mop bucket toward the storage closet, Felix caught sight of movement near the hotel's main entrance. Through the glass doors, he could see a woman struggling with what appeared to be several pieces of luggage. She was clearly pregnant, her silhouette unmistakable even in the dim outdoor lighting. She seemed to be having trouble managing a large suitcase and what looked like a laptop bag while trying to open the heavy entrance door. Felix didn't hesitate. He'd been raised by a grandmother who would have knocked him into next week if she'd ever caught him ignoring someone who needed help, especially a pregnant woman. He quickly stowed his cleaning supplies and hurried to the entrance, pushing open the door just as the woman was trying to balance her bags and reach for the handle. "Let me help you with those," Felix said quietly, not wanting to startle her. In the empty lobby, the woman looked up, and even in the dim light, Felix could see relief wash over her face. She was probably in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, and the kind of exhausted expression that comes from long travel. Her coat was expensive looking but wrinkled, and she moved with the careful deliberateness of someone in their 3rd trimester. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice carrying a slight tremor of fatigue. "I was starting to think I'd be camping out here in the lobby tonight." Felix smiled and reached for her heaviest bag. "The elevator's been out of service for a few days. What floor are you heading to?" "4th, she said, then paused. "Is that going to be a problem?" "Not at all," Felix replied, though privately he wondered how she'd been planning to manage 4 flights of stairs in her condition. "I'll help you get everything up there." As they walked toward the grand staircase, Felix noticed something odd. The woman seemed to know exactly where she was going, navigating the lobby's layout without the usual hesitation of a first-time guest. Most people paused to get their bearings, consulted their phone for their room number, or asked for directions. But she moved with the confidence of someone familiar with the space. "Have you stayed with us before?" Felix asked as they began climbing the stairs, he carrying her heavy suitcase while she managed the smaller bags. There was a pause, just a beat too long, before she answered. "Once or twice." Something in her tone made Felix glance back at her, but she was focused on the stairs, one hand resting on the polished banister and the other supporting her lower back. Whatever secrets she might be carrying, Felix decided, were none of his business. His job was simply to help her reach her destination safely, but as they climbed through the quiet hotel, Felix couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was going to change everything. He just didn't know how right he was. The climb to the 4th floor should have been routine. Felix had made this journey countless times, carrying luggage for guests who tipped him with crumpled dollar bills and tired smiles. But as they reached the 2nd floor landing, the pregnant woman suddenly stopped, gripping the banister with white knuckles. "Are you okay?" Felix asked immediately, setting down her suitcase and moving closer. In the soft lighting of the stairwell, he could see that her face had gone pale, tiny beads of perspiration forming on her forehead despite the cool evening air. "I just need a moment," she said, her breathing slightly labored. "The baby's been particularly active tonight and climbing. Stairs is," She pressed her free hand to her side and winced. Felix felt his protective instincts kick into overdrive, the same ones that made him check on Jamie 3 times every night to make sure he was breathing peacefully. "Here, let's sit you down," he said, guiding her to the small cushioned bench that was positioned near the second-floor elevator doors. The bench was one of those thoughtful touches that made Cedar Heights special, placed there specifically for guests who needed to rest during the climb. "I'm probably being ridiculous," the woman said, as she settled onto the bench, but Felix could hear the worry in her voice. "I've been traveling all day, and I think I'm just more tired than I realized." "You're not being ridiculous at all," Felix assured her. "When's the baby due?" 6 weeks, she replied, then added with a wry smile, "Though the little one seems to think my ribs make excellent soccer goals." "Soccer goals?" Felix chuckled softly. "My son used to do the same thing to his mother. She said it felt like he was trying to kick his way out early." The memory came without the usual sting of pain that thoughts of his ex-wife typically brought. Maybe it was the late hour, or maybe it was something about this woman's gentle presence that made the past feel less sharp. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. "Now back to the story, your son," she asked, and Felix noticed genuine interest in her voice rather than the polite small talk most guests offered. "Jamie, he's 6 now, all elbows and endless questions about how everything works." Felix found himself smiling as he spoke. "Last week he asked me if hotels have basements because he wanted to know if the building had feet like people do." The woman laughed, a real laugh that echoed softly in the stairwell. "That's wonderful. You must be very proud of him." "Every single day," Felix said without hesitation, "even when he tries to feed his vegetables to the neighbor's cat through the window." As they sat there, Felix noticed something else odd. The woman wasn't checking her phone for her room number or looking around with the confusion typical of guests trying to navigate an unfamiliar building. Instead, she seemed completely comfortable, as if she belonged here. More than that, she was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite identify, something between curiosity and recognition. "What's your name?" she asked suddenly. "Felix," he replied. "Felix Cole. I work the night maintenance shift here." Something flickered across her face at the mention of his name, but it was gone so quickly Felix almost thought he'd imagined it. "Felix," she repeated softly, as if testing how it sounded. "That's a good name. It means happy or fortunate, doesn't it?" "My grandmother chose it," Felix said, surprised by her knowledge of the name's meaning. "She said every person should carry a little happiness with them wherever they go." "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." "She was. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. Felix wasn't sure why he was sharing so much personal information with a guest, but something about the quiet intimacy of the moment made conversation feel natural. "I'm sorry for your loss," the woman said, and her sympathy felt genuine rather than perfunctory. "It sounds like she did a wonderful job raising you. The way you immediately helped me tonight, the care you're showing now, that speaks to how she taught you to treat people." Felix felt heat rise in his cheeks. "I just do what anyone would do." "No," she said firmly, her eyes meeting his directly. "You don't. Most people would have pointed me toward the stairs and gone back to their work. You didn't hesitate to help, and you're sitting here making sure I'm okay instead of rushing off to finish your duties. That's not what anyone would do. That's what a good person does." The compliment hit Felix in a place he didn't expect. Over the past 2 years, he'd grown used to feeling invisible, to being just another face in the background of other people's lives. His ex-wife had made him feel inadequate, like his best efforts were never quite enough. The custody arrangement had reinforced his sense that he was peripheral to Jamie's life, important but not essential. But this stranger was seeing something in him that he'd almost forgotten existed. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That means more than you know." She smiled, and for a moment the stairwell felt less like a utilitarian hotel space and more like somewhere meaningful. "I should probably finish getting to my room," she said, starting to stand. Felix quickly rose and reached for her bags. "How are you feeling? Do you think you can manage the rest of the climb?" "Much better, thanks to you." She paused, then added, "Felix, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you like working here, at Cedar Heights?" The question caught him off guard. Guests didn't usually ask about job satisfaction. "I do, actually. It's quiet work, which suits me. And the management is fair, even if they're..." He searched for the right word. "Mysterious?" she supplied, with what looked like an amused smile. "I was going to say hands off, but mysterious works too." Felix picked up her suitcase again. "I've been here over 2 years, and I've never even seen the owner. But that's fine by me. As long as the paycheck's clear and I can do my job without drama, I'm happy." "And what would make you even happier? If you could change anything about your situation here?" Felix considered the question as they resumed their climb. "Honestly, I'd love to move to day shift eventually. The night hours work well for now because of Jamie's schedule. But as he gets older, I'd like to be around more in the evenings. Help with homework, maybe coach his little league team if he's interested." He paused. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," she said. But Felix caught something in her tone that suggested her interest was more than casual. As they reached the third-floor landing, Felix noticed the woman checking her watch, an elegant piece that caught the light as she moved. Everything about her seemed expensive but understated, from her leather handbag to her well-tailored maternity coat. She clearly had money, but she wore it comfortably, without ostentation. "Almost there," Felix said encouragingly as they started. "The final flight." "Felix," she said as they climbed, "I want you to know that what you've done tonight, helping me, sitting with me, just being kind, it matters more than you realize." There was something in her voice that made Felix look back at her. She was watching him with an intensity that seemed to see right through him. And for a moment, he had the strangest feeling that this encounter had been planned somehow, that nothing about it was as random as it seemed, but that was impossible, wasn't it? Just his imagination running wild during the lonely hours of the night shift. They reached the 4th floor, and Felix set down her suitcase in the carpeted hallway. "Which room?" he asked. She hesitated for just a moment. "Actually, Felix, before we go any further, there's something I need to tell you." The hallway of the 4th floor was bathed in the same warm amber lighting that gave Cedar Heights its welcoming atmosphere, but suddenly the space felt charged with an energy Felix couldn't identify. The woman stood there, her hand resting on her rounded belly, looking at him with an expression that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "I'm not a guest here, Felix," she said quietly. "My name is Lucia Stone, and I own this hotel." The words hit Felix like a physical blow. He actually took a step backward, his mind struggling to process what she'd just said. "You're... what?" "I'm Lucia Stone," she repeated gently. "I own Cedar Heights Hotel." Felix stared at her, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to form words. The mysterious owner he'd never seen, the person whose signature appeared on his paychecks, the ghost who managed the hotel from the shadows. She was standing right in front of him, pregnant and exhausted, having just climbed 3 flights of stairs because he'd helped her with her luggage. But you're..." Felix gestured helplessly, his usual composure completely shattered. "I mean, I've been working here for over 2 years and I've never seen me," Lucia finished with a small smile. "I know, that was intentional." "I don't understand," Felix said, running a hand through his hair. "Why are you telling me this? Did I do something wrong? Am I in trouble?" The look of alarm that crossed Lucia's face was immediate and genuine. "Oh, no, Felix, no, you're not in trouble at all. Quite the opposite, actually." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Can we sit down? There's more I need to explain, and I think we both could use another rest." Felix looked around the hallway, realizing they were standing near the small seating area by the window. Another one of those thoughtful touches that made Cedar Heights special. 2 wingback chairs and a small table were arranged to take advantage of the view of Millbrook Valley's downtown lights, twinkling in the distance. They settled into the chairs, and Felix found himself studying Lucia's face in the better lighting. Now that he knew who she was, he could see traces of the authority and intelligence that would be necessary to run a successful business. But there was also something vulnerable about her, something that went beyond her pregnant state. "I owe you an explanation," Lucia began, "but first I want you to know that everything I told you during our conversation was genuine. I really was struggling with my luggage. I really did need help, and I really am grateful for your kindness." "But you planned this," Felix said, and it wasn't a question. Lucia nodded slowly. "Not exactly planned, but I was hoping for an opportunity to meet you properly. When I saw you helping me tonight, I realized this might be my chance." "Why?" The question came out more sharply than Felix intended. "Why would the owner of the hotel want to meet the night maintenance guy?" "Because," Lucia said, "I've been watching you work for the past 6 months, and I've seen things that made me realize you're not just the night maintenance guy. You're exactly the kind of person I've been looking for." Felix felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening. "Air conditioning. Watching me work? From where?" "The security office has monitors for all the common areas," Lucia explained. "It's standard for hotels, liability issues, guest safety, that sort of thing. But about 6 months ago, I started actually paying attention to what those monitors showed during the night shift." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes never leaving his face. "Do you remember Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who stayed here every month to visit her husband in the memory care facility?" Felix nodded. "She always brought those photo albums and liked to sit in the lobby after visiting hours ended. Sweet lady. Do you remember the night she fell asleep in the lobby chair and started crying in her sleep?" The memory came flooding back. She was having a nightmare about forgetting her husband's face. "I woke her up gently and made her some tea in the kitchen. You sat with her for 2 hours," Lucia continued. "You listened to her stories about their 53 years of marriage. You helped her practice remembering details about their first date. That wasn't in your job description, Felix." Felix felt heat rising in his cheeks. "She was lonely and scared. Anyone would have—" "No," Lucia interrupted firmly. "Anyone wouldn't have. Most people would have woken her up and sent her to her room. You saw a person in pain, and you chose to help her heal." She shifted in her chair, her hand moving to support her back. "Then there was the night you found that teenager who'd run away from home, sleeping in the stairwell. Instead of calling security or the police immediately, you brought him food and talked to him for an hour about why he'd left." "He was just a scared kid," Felix protested. His parents were getting divorced, and he felt like no one was listening to him. "You convinced him to call his mother," Lucia said. "You stayed with him until she arrived. You even spoke to her privately about family counseling resources in the area." Felix was beginning to feel overwhelmed. "You saw all of this?" "I saw all of this and dozens of other moments like it. The way you remember the names of every regular guest, how you always go out of your way to help business travelers who are struggling with the Wi-Fi. The fact that you've never once called in sick, never cut corners on your work, never treated a single person with anything less than dignity and respect." "I still don't understand why this matters to you," Felix said, though his voice was quieter. "Now," Lucia was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the lights of the valley below. When she spoke again, Her voice carried a weight that made Felix lean forward to listen. Felix, I inherited this hotel when I was 28 years old. My parents died in a plane crash 3 years ago, and suddenly I was responsible for a business I'd never shown much interest in. I was working in non-profit management in Portland, trying to make a difference in the world. And then overnight, I became a hotel owner in a small town I'd barely visited since college. She turned back to face him, and Felix could see unshed tears glistening in her eyes. For the first year, I tried to manage everything remotely. I hired managers, checked financial reports, made decisions from a distance, but the hotel started losing its soul. Guest satisfaction scores dropped, staff turnover increased, and I realized I was letting my parents' legacy crumble because I was too afraid to actually engage with it. So you moved back? Felix asked. 6 months ago, yes. But I didn't want to come in as the owner and disrupt everything immediately. I wanted to understand what was really happening here. What made this place special? So I've been living in the penthouse suite, watching, learning, trying to figure out how to honor what my parents built while making it my own. Felix was beginning to understand. And you've been watching the night shift because the night shift is when people are most themselves, Lucia finished. During the day, everyone's performing, staff for management, guests for each other. But at night, when the world gets quiet, you see who people really are. And what I saw in you, Felix, was everything I want this hotel to represent. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook, flipping through several pages before finding what she was looking for. I've been keeping notes, she said, showing him a page filled with dates and observations. June 15th. Felix stayed late to help elderly guest find lost medication. July 2nd. Felix noticed broken light in stairwell and fixed it immediately without being asked. July 20th. Felix, you've been documenting my work? Felix interrupted, feeling a mixture of flattery and invasion of privacy. I've been documenting excellence, Lucia corrected. Felix, I want to offer you a promotion. I want you to become the guest experience manager for Cedar Heights Hotel. The words hung in the air between them like something tangible. Felix stared at her, certain he'd misheard. Guest experience manager, day shift, Monday through Friday. Your own office, a salary that's more than double what you're making now, and the authority to implement the kind of guest care standards that I've watched you provide naturally for the past 2 years. Felix felt the world tilting around him. I don't have a degree in hospitality management. I don't have experience. You have something better than a degree, Lucia said. You have a heart that sees people as individuals worth caring about. That's not something you can teach, Felix. That's something you either have or you don't, and you have it in abundance. She leaned back in her chair, studying his face. So, what do you say? Are you interested in helping me rebuild Cedar Heights into the kind of place where every guest feels as cared for as you made me feel tonight? Felix sat in stunned silence, his mind reeling from the magnitude of what Lucia had just offered him. Guest experience manager, day shift, double his salary. It was everything he'd quietly hoped for, but never dared to ask about. Yet something held him back from immediately accepting. Some voice in his head that whispered he wasn't qualified, wasn't worthy of such an opportunity. I need to understand something, Felix said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Really, why me? You could hire someone with a hospitality degree, someone with management experience, someone who actually knows what they're doing. Lucia's expression softened, and she shifted in her chair to face him more directly. Can I tell you a story, Felix? He nodded, not trusting his voice. When I was 12 years old, my family took a vacation to a small resort in Maine. It was nothing fancy, Just a family-run place on the coast with about 20 rooms and a restaurant that served the same 5 entrees every night. But there was this man who worked there, probably in his 60s, who seemed to know every guest by name within hours of their arrival. She paused, her eyes focusing on something beyond the window. His name was Thomas, and he wasn't the manager or the owner. I think he was officially the maintenance supervisor. But Thomas had this gift. He noticed things. He remembered that my father took his coffee black, that my mother was afraid of spiders, that I was going through an awkward phase, and felt invisible most of the time. Felix found himself leaning forward, drawn into her story, despite his emotional turmoil. On our 3rd day there, Lucia continued, I was sitting alone on the dock, feeling sorry for myself because my parents were arguing about something stupid and I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Thomas came by with his toolbox. He was fixing a loose board or something, and he just started talking to me, not talking down to me, not treating me like a kid who couldn't understand adult problems, but actually talking to me. She smiled at the memory. He told me about his granddaughter, who was my age, how she was also struggling with feeling like she didn't fit in anywhere. He said that some people are born with hearts that are too big for the world around them, and that feeling out of place isn't a flaw. It's a sign that you're meant to create space for other people who feel the same way. Felix felt something tighten in his chest. What happened to him? I don't know, Lucia admitted. We only stayed for a week, and I never saw him again. But 20 years later, I still remember exactly how he made me feel. Like I mattered. Like my sensitivity wasn't a weakness, but a strength. Like the things that made me different were the things that could make me valuable to the world. She gestured around them, indicating the hotel. When my parents died and I inherited this place, I was lost. I'd spent my career working for non-profit organizations, trying to help homeless families find housing, trying to make systems work better for people who had fallen through the cracks. I was good at that work because I understood what it felt. Like to feel displaced, to not quite fit. But running a hotel felt different, Felix asked. At first, yes, I thought hospitality was just about clean rooms and functioning amenities. But after watching you work, after seeing how you interact with people, I realized I was wrong. Real hospitality, the kind that changes people's lives, is about seeing people. Really seeing them. And that's exactly what you do, Felix. Felix looked down at his hands, calloused from years of manual labor. I don't feel like I'm particularly good at seeing people. Most of the time, I feel like I'm just trying to get through the day without messing anything up. Can I tell you what I see when I look at you? Lucia asked gently. Felix met her eyes and nodded. I see a man who lost his parents when he was 8 years old and somehow learned to take care of others instead of becoming bitter. I see someone who went through a difficult divorce and custody battle but never let that pain make him cynical about helping people. I see a father who works night shifts so he can be available for his son during the day, who probably survives on 4 hours of sleep because he refuses to compromise on either his responsibilities as a parent or his commitment to doing good work. Each observation hit Felix like a gentle blow, accurate and unexpectedly emotional. How do you know about my divorce? HR files, Lucia said simply. But also because I recognize the signs. I've been there too. This revelation surprised Felix. You've been divorced. Engaged, Lucia corrected. I was engaged to someone I thought I loved, someone I thought understood me. When my parents died and I inherited the hotel, he started making plans for how we could maximize the property value, how we could sell it and invest the money in something more profitable. He couldn't understand why I felt obligated to honor my parents' legacy, why I couldn't just walk away from what he saw as a burden. She absently rubbed her wedding ring finger, and Felix noticed it was bare. When I told him I was moving back to Millbrook Valley to run the hotel myself, he gave me an ultimatum, him or the hotel, so I chose the hotel. "Do you regret it?" Felix asked. "Not for a second," Lucia said firmly. "But it taught me something important about the difference between people who see you as convenient and people who see you as valuable. My ex-fiancé saw me as convenient. I was successful, independent, low maintenance, but he never saw me as valuable for who I actually was." She shifted again, her hand moving to her belly. "This little one's father was someone I met about 8 months ago, a business conference in Seattle. He seemed different at first, attentive, interested in my work, supportive of my goals. But when I told him I was pregnant, his first question was whether I was planning to handle it so it wouldn't interfere with my career." Felix felt a surge of anger on her behalf. "He didn't want the baby. He didn't want the inconvenience," Lucia said. "Just like my ex-fiancé didn't want the inconvenience of my family obligations. So here I am, 31 years old, running a hotel I inherited, pregnant with a baby whose father thinks we're both mistakes to be managed." The pain in her voice was unmistakable, and Felix understood why she'd been so touched by his simple act of kindness earlier. "That's why you were traveling alone tonight?" "I was in Portland, closing out my apartment and finalizing some business. There, I decided to drive back instead of flying because I wanted time to think, to figure out how I'm going to manage being a single mother and running this hotel." She looked directly at him. "That's another reason I need someone like you, Felix. I need someone who understands what it's like to raise a youngster on your own while trying to build something meaningful." Felix felt the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "You're not just offering me a job, you're looking for a partner in making this place work." "Exactly," Lucia said. "I can handle the business side, budgets, marketing, vendor relationships, strategic planning. But I need someone who can handle the human side, someone who can train our staff to see guests the way you see them, someone who can create the kind of environment where families feel welcomed and individuals feel valued." She paused, then added quietly, "And honestly, I need to know that when this baby comes, there's someone I trust completely to help maintain the standards we set. Someone who understands that this isn't just a business, it's a place where people come when they need something they can't find at home." Felix sat back in his chair, overwhelmed by the weight of her trust and the magnitude of the opportunity she was offering. "Lucia, I have to ask, are you sure about this? You barely know me. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not as good at this as you think I am?" Lucia smiled, and for the first time since she'd revealed her identity, she looked completely at peace. "Felix, you've been doing this job without a title, without recognition, without anyone asking you to do it for over 2 years. You've been the guest experience manager in everything but name. I'm not asking you to become someone different. I'm asking you to let me give you the resources and authority to be more of who you already are." She reached out and briefly touched his hand. "The question isn't whether you can do this job. The question is whether you want to do it with me." Felix stared at Lucia's hand where it had briefly touched his, feeling the warmth that lingered even after she'd pulled away. The simple gesture had carried more meaning than any handshake or formal business interaction ever could. It was the touch of someone who understood loneliness, who recognized a kindred spirit in the midst of their own struggles. "There's something else I need to tell you," Lucia said, her voice taking on a more hesitant quality. "Something about why I was really watching you so closely these past 6 months." Felix felt a flutter of unease in his stomach. "What do you mean?" Lucia reached into her purse again, this time pulling out a manila folder that looked well worn from handling. "When I first moved into the penthouse suite 6 months ago, I was going through my parents' personal files, things that had been stored in their office here at the hotel. I was looking for business documents, insurance policies, anything that might help me understand how they ran this place." She opened the folder and pulled out a photograph, holding it so Felix could see. It was a picture of a man in his 30s, wearing a Cedar Heights hotel uniform, standing next to a much younger version of what must have been Lucia's father. Both men were smiling, and there was a sense of camaraderie between them that spoke of genuine friendship rather than just a professional relationship. "Do you recognize him?" Lucia asked softly. Felix studied the photograph, something nagging at him about the man's features. The jawline, the way he held his shoulders, something about the eyes. "He looks familiar, but I can't place him." "His name was Daniel Cole," Lucia said, watching Felix's face carefully. "He worked here for almost 15 years, from the early 1990s until 2007. According to the employment records, he started as maintenance staff and worked his way up to assistant manager." The name hit Felix like a lightning bolt. "Cole, that's my last name." "I know," Lucia said gently. "Felix, I think Daniel might have been your father." The world seemed to tilt around Felix. He reached for the photograph with trembling hands, studying the man's face more closely. Now that Lucia had said it, the resemblance was unmistakable. The same dark hair, the same thoughtful expression, even the same way of standing with one shoulder slightly higher than the other. A habit Felix had inherited without ever knowing where it came from. But my parents died in a car accident when I was 8, Felix said, his voice barely audible. "My grandmother never mentioned anything about my father working at a hotel." "The accident happened in 2007, Lucia continued carefully. "According to what I found in my father's notes, Daniel had taken a leave of absence to spend more time with his family. He was planning to come back to work the following month when—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Felix's hands were shaking as he held the photograph. "My grandmother always said my father was a good man who cared about people, but she never talked much about his work. I always assumed it was too painful for her to discuss." "There's more," Lucia said, pulling out several sheets of paper from the folder. "My father kept detailed notes about employees he considered family rather than just staff. Listen to this." She began reading from a handwritten page. "Daniel Cole is the heart of this hotel. Guests remember him years later, not because of grand gestures, but because he makes them feel seen. He has an intuitive understanding of what people need, often before they know it themselves. When he eventually moves into management, Cedar Heights will be in excellent hands." Felix felt tears burning behind his eyes. "He wrote that about my father." "There's more," Lucia continued. "Daniel's approach to hospitality isn't learned, it's innate. He treats every guest as if they're a friend visiting his home. His son Felix shows the same natural curiosity about people and the same instinct to help. If anything ever happens to Daniel, I hope Felix will find his way back to us someday." "He knew about me?" Felix's voice cracked. "Your father brought you to the hotel sometimes on weekends. My father remembered you as a sweet, observant boy who was always asking questions about how things worked and trying to help the housekeeping staff with their carts." Lucia smiled softly. "According to these notes, you once spent an entire afternoon helping my father organize his office because you noticed he seemed stressed about something." Felix closed his eyes, and suddenly a memory surfaced. Vague and dreamlike but real. A grand staircase much like the one they'd climbed together tonight. A kind man with graying hair showing him how the old elevator worked. The smell of lemon cleaner and fresh flowers. His father's laugh echoing through elegant hallways. "I remember," he whispered. "Not everything, but pieces. There was an office with big windows, and someone let me use a calculator to add up numbers on important-looking papers. My father," Lucia confirmed. "He wrote about that day. He said you were 7 years old and you asked if numbers could be friends with each other because they seemed to like being together in groups." The absurdity of the memory combined with the emotional weight of everything he'd learned, made Felix laugh through his tears. "I said that?" "You did. And my father wrote, 'That's Daniel's son, all right, seeing connections and relationships where other people just see functions.'" Felix looked up at Lucia, understanding beginning to dawn. "That's why you were watching me. Not just because of how I do my job, but because I recognize something in you that my father had described in his notes about your father," Lucia finished. "The way you interact with people, the way you notice things others miss, the way you make everyone feel important. It's exactly what my father wrote about Daniel Cole." She pulled out one final document from the folder. "This is a letter my father wrote but never sent. It's addressed to your grandmother, dated about 6 months after the accident." Felix took the letter with trembling hands and began to read aloud. "Dear Mrs. Cole, I know this letter may seem strange coming so long after Daniel's memorial service, but I wanted you to know that your son was more than an employee to us. He was family. His kindness and dedication helped make Cedar Heights the special place it became during his years here. I also wanted you to know that if Felix ever needs anything as he grows up, a job, a reference, help with college expenses, please don't hesitate to contact me." Daniel spoke of that boy with such pride, and any son of Daniel Cole will always have a place here if he wants it. Felix's voice broke on the final words. "He never sent this?" "I think he was afraid it might be too painful for your grandmother to receive," Lucia said, "but he kept it in his files, along with all his notes about your father. When you applied for the maintenance position here 2 years ago, my father had already passed away, but the day manager who hired you found these files and called me. She recognized your last name and wanted to know if there was any connection. That's why I got the job so easily," Felix realized. "I always wondered why they hired me with such limited experience." "You got the job because of your father's legacy," Lucia said, "but you've kept it and excelled at it because of your own character. The day manager told me she was curious to see if you'd inherited your father's gift for hospitality. After watching you these past 2 years, I can honestly say you didn't just inherit it, you've made it your own." Felix sat in stunned silence, the pieces of his life rearranging themselves into a pattern he'd never seen before. The hotel that had become his sanctuary, the work that had felt so natural to him, the way guests responded to his care. It was all connected to a father he barely remembered and a legacy he'd never known existed. "Felix," Lucia said gently, "I want you to understand that my job offer isn't about honoring your father's memory, though I do want to honor it. It's about recognizing that you've already proven yourself to be exactly the kind of person this place needs. You've been carrying on your father's work without even knowing it." She paused, then added with a smile, "Though I have to admit, there's something beautifully poetic about Daniel Cole's son helping to rebuild the hotel where his father found his calling." Felix looked down at the photograph of his father, then back at Lucia. For the first time in years, he felt like pieces of himself that had been scattered were finally coming together. What would this job actually involve? Day to day, I mean. Partnership, Lucia said simply. Real partnership. You'd help me redesign our guest services, train our staff in the kind of care you provide naturally, develop programs that make Cedar Heights a place people remember for decades. And when this baby comes, she gestured to her belly, you'd help me figure out how to balance being a mother with running a business that serves families. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with possibility. Felix, I'm not just offering you a job. I'm offering you the chance to build something meaningful with someone who understands what it's like to feel responsible for more than just yourself. Felix felt as though he was standing at the edge of a precipice, looking down at a life he'd never imagined possible. Everything Lucia had told him was overwhelming enough: the job offer, the connection to his father, the chance to transform his entire future. But there was something in her eyes, something in the way she was watching him, that suggested there was still more to this story. "Lucia," he said slowly, "there's something you're not telling me, isn't there?" She took a deep breath, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. "Yes, there is, but it's complicated, and I'm not sure how you're going to react. After everything we've already discussed tonight, I think I can handle complicated," Felix said, though his heart was racing. Lucia reached into the folder one more time and pulled out a smaller envelope, this one sealed and yellowed with age. "This was in my father's personal safe, not with the hotel files. I found it when I was settling his estate 3 years ago, but I didn't understand its significance until I started researching your family." She handed him the envelope, and Felix saw his name written on the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. But below his name in smaller text were the words, "To be opened on his 30th birthday." "I'm 31, Felix said, looking up at her in confusion. "I know. I found this letter 2 years after you should have received it, and by then you were already working here. I've been carrying it with me for months, trying to figure out the right time and the right way to give it to you." Felix's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in the same elegant handwriting he'd seen in the hotel files. As he unfolded it, he realized it was dated just 3 months before his parents' accident. "Read it out loud," Lucia said softly. "Please." Felix's voice was unsteady as he began. "My dear Felix, if you are reading this letter, it means you have reached your 30th birthday and hopefully found your way back to Cedar Heights Hotel, where your father meant so much to all of us. By now you may have learned that your father Daniel was not just an employee here, but a true friend and the heart of our hospitality family." Felix paused, looking up at Lucia, who nodded encouragingly for him to continue. "There are things about your father's time here that even your grandmother may not have known. Things that I promised Daniel I would share with you when you were old enough to understand their full significance. Your father didn't just work at Cedar Heights. He was being prepared to inherit a partnership in the hotel." Felix's voice caught. "What?" "Keep reading," Lucia whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Daniel Cole was more than my employee. He was like the son I never had. My wife and I struggled for years to have youngsters, and when we finally were blessed with Lucia, Daniel was one of the first people to congratulate us. He became her unofficial uncle, and she adored him. When she was small, she would ask me why Uncle Daniel couldn't come live with us so she could see him every day." Felix looked up sharply at Lucia, understanding beginning to dawn. "You knew my father personally. You remember him." Lucia nodded, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "You were like my big brother when I was little. I was 4 when you were 8, but you always had time to play with me when your father brought you to the hotel. You taught me how to count to 100 and helped me learn to tie my shoes. I was heartbroken when you stopped coming." Felix stared at her, memories flooding back with sudden clarity. A little girl with dark curls and bright eyes following him around the hotel, chattering endlessly about everything and nothing. Playing hide and seek in the conference rooms, teaching her to stack sugar packets into towers in the restaurant. "Lucy," he breathed. "You were Lucy. You used to call me Fee because you couldn't pronounce Felix. And you called me Lucy Goose because I followed you around like a gosling," she said, laughing through her tears. "Felix, I've been watching you work here for 2 years, and I kept thinking there was something familiar about you, but I couldn't place it. It wasn't until I found this letter and started looking through the old photo albums that I realized who you were." Felix's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the letter. "Keep reading," Lucia urged. "There's more. I had planned to offer Daniel a full partnership in Cedar Heights Hotel when Lucia turned 18. He had earned it through his dedication, his vision, and his genuine love for this place and the people it serves. I also planned to create a trust fund that would ensure Felix's education and provide him with the opportunity to join the business if he chose to do so when he came of age. Felix's voice broke completely. This can't be real. The car accident changed everything, Lucia said gently. My father was devastated when he lost Daniel. He told me years later that losing your father felt like losing his vision for the future of the hotel. He never offered anyone else a partnership, and he never found anyone else who shared his passion for true hospitality the way your father did. Felix continued reading through his tears. If you are reading this, Felix, it means you have found your way back to us, and I hope you will consider fulfilling the destiny that your father and I dreamed of for you. Cedar Heights Hotel should belong to someone who understands that hospitality is not a business, it is a calling. Someone who sees guests not as revenue sources, but as human beings deserving of care and respect. Someone like your father. Someone like you, the letter continued. I have instructed my daughter Lucia to honor this commitment if anything should happen to me before your 30th birthday. The terms of my will include provisions for a partnership offer to be extended to Felix Cole, should he prove himself to be the man I believe he will become. Lucy, if you are reading this with him, you will know whether he has inherited his father's heart. Trust that instinct. Trust that instinct. Felix looked up at Lucia, his mind reeling. This is why you've been watching me. This is why you offered me the promotion, not just because you needed someone, but because your father asked you to. Yes and no, Lucia said firmly. My father planted the seed, but Felix, you've proven yourself on your own merit. When I started watching the security footage, I wasn't thinking about my father's letter. I was just trying to understand what made the hotel work during the night shift. It wasn't until I saw who you had become, saw how you treat people, that I remembered the letter and understood what my father had seen in your potential. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Felix, I could have honored my father's wishes by offering you a token partnership or a ceremonial position. But what I'm offering you is real, equal partnership, equal decision-making authority, equal ownership stake in Cedar Heights Hotel, because you've earned it, not just inherited it. Felix set the letter down with trembling hands. Lucy, this is... I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it, she said. Say you'll help me turn this place into everything our fathers dreamed it could be. Felix looked around the hallway where they sat, seeing it with completely new eyes. This wasn't just the hotel where he worked. It was the place where his father had found his calling, where he himself had played as a youngster, where his childhood friend had grown up and now needed his help to carry on a legacy that belonged to both of them. There's one more thing in the letter, Lucia said softly. Felix picked it up again and read the final paragraph. Felix, if you accept this partnership, you will not just be joining a business, you will be joining a family. Lucy has grown up knowing about you, knowing that somewhere out there was a boy who once made her laugh and taught her that kindness matters more than success. If you two can find your way back to each other, you will discover that the bond you had as youngers has only grown stronger with time and experience. Take care of each other. Take care of this place. Make it a home for people who need one. Felix and Lucia sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of destiny and choice hanging in the air between them. Everything they had both been through, the losses, the struggles, the loneliness, had led them to this moment, to this chance to rebuild something beautiful together. Fee, Lucia said softly, using his childhood nickname for the first time in over 20 years. Yes, Lucy Goose. Will you come home? The question hung in the air between them like a bridge spanning 23 years of separation, loss, and individual struggle. Felix looked into Lucia's eyes, eyes that he now remembered watching him with fascination as a 4-year-old, eyes that had cried when he stopped coming to the hotel, eyes that had been searching for something familiar in his face for the past 2 years without realizing what it was. "I need a minute," Felix said, his voice barely above a whisper. He stood up from the chair, his legs unsteady, and walked to the window overlooking Millbrook Valley. The lights of the town sparkled below, like stars that had fallen to earth, and he pressed his palms against the cool glass, trying to ground himself in something solid while his entire world rearranged itself around him. Lucia remained seated, giving him space, but staying close enough that he could feel her presence. She understood the magnitude of what she'd just revealed, understood that Felix needed time to process not just the partnership offer, but the realization that the lonely years since his parents' death hadn't been as isolated as he'd believed. There had been someone, this someone, who had remembered him, who had grown up knowing about him, who had been unconsciously waiting for his return. "I used to dream about this place," Felix said suddenly, still facing the window. Not clearly, just fragments, a little girl laughing. The sound of my father's voice echoing in a big room. The smell of fresh flowers and furniture polish. I thought they were just random memories from before the accident. But they were all here, weren't they? "Yes," Lucia said softly. "Your father brought you here almost every weekend for the last 2 years of his life. My father said Daniel wanted you to understand what he did for work, wanted you to see how taking care of people could be a career, not just a character trait." Felix turned back to face her, and she was struck by how much the 8-year-old boy she remembered had grown into the man sitting across from her. The same thoughtful expression when he was trying to understand something important. The same way of tilting his head slightly when he was listening carefully. The same gentle hands that had once helped her build towers out of sugar packets and were now helping guests feel welcomed and valued. "Do you remember the day you taught me to tie my shoes?" Lucia asked, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Felix closed his eyes, and suddenly he was 8 years old again, sitting on the carpeted floor of what must have been Lucia's father's office. A tiny girl with dark curls and a frustrated expression, wrestling with pink shoelaces that seemed determined to stay untied. "You were wearing those little white sneakers with the pink laces," he said, opening his eyes. "And you were so mad because all the other kids at preschool could tie their shoes and you couldn't." "I threw the shoes across the room," Lucia admitted with a laugh. "I was having a complete meltdown about it. My father was in a meeting and didn't know what to do with me. So I sat down with you on the floor and we practiced for what felt like hours," Felix continued, the memory becoming clearer with each detail. "I taught you the bunny ears method, and you kept getting frustrated because your bunny ears looked more like bunny pancakes. But you never got impatient with me," Lucia said, her voice full of wonder. "You just kept showing me over and over until I finally got it right. And when I did, you cheered so loud that my father came out of his meeting to see what was happening." Felix sat back down in his chair, shaking his head in amazement. "I can't believe I forgot all of this. How did I forget you?" "Trauma does that," Lucia said gently. "When something terrible happens, our minds sometimes protect us by blurring the details of what came before, especially if those memories are tied to the people we lost. You probably associated me and this place with your father, and after the accident, thinking about your father was too painful. But you remembered me all these years?" Lucia nodded. "Not consciously at first." "After you stopped coming?" I asked. "My father, where Fee had gone, and he had to explain that your parents had died and you'd gone to live with your grandmother in another town. I was only 4, so I didn't fully understand what death meant. But I understood that you weren't coming. You back." She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her photos, finding one that made her smile. "Look at this." She showed him a picture of a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing next to a snowman that was clearly too big for her to have built alone. Every winter until I was about 10, I would build a snowman in the hotel's back garden and tell my father it was for when Fee came back. I was convinced that if I made it big enough and impressive enough, you would somehow know and find your way home. Felix felt his throat tighten with emotion. You were waiting for me to come back. Part of me never stopped, Lucia admitted. Even when I got older and understood that you probably didn't even remember me, even when I moved away for college and started my own life, there was always this little voice in the back of my mind, wondering what had happened to the boy who had been so patient with a frustrated 4-year-old. Felix looked down at his hands, overwhelmed by the realization that someone had been carrying his memory all these years, that his childhood kindness had mattered enough to be remembered and treasured by someone who had grown into this remarkable woman. Lucia, I need you to understand something, he said, looking up at her. When I took this job 2 years ago, I was broken. The divorce, the custody battle, losing my job at the plant. I felt like I had failed at everything that mattered. I took the night shift because I thought it would be safer to work when fewer people were around to witness me mess things up. But you didn't mess anything up, Lucia said firmly. You excelled. You found your calling. Because of this place, Felix said. Because something about being here felt right in a way I couldn't explain. Now I understand why. I wasn't just finding a job, I was coming home to something I'd lost without even knowing I'd lost it. He stood up again, but this time his movement was purposeful rather than restless. Lucy, what you're offering me is more than I ever dreamed possible. Partnership in a business I love, the chance to honor my father's memory, the opportunity to build something meaningful with someone who understands what it's like to carry responsibility for other people's well-being. But, Lucia asked, sensing there was more. But it's also terrifying, Felix admitted. What if I'm not ready for this kind of responsibility? What if I let you down? What if I'm not the man your father thought I could become? Lucia struggled to her feet, her pregnancy making quick movements difficult, and walked over to where Felix stood. Fee, do you remember what you told me the day I finally learned to tie my shoes? Felix shook his head. You said loosey goose. The thing about being good at something isn't that you never mess up. It's that when you do mess up, you care enough to try again. You were 8 years old, and you already understood something about perseverance and character that some adults never learn. She reached out and took his hand, the same way she had when she was 4 and needed reassurance. You've been trying again your entire life, Felix. After losing your parents, after your divorce, after every setback, you've kept caring about people, kept trying to do good work, kept being the kind of person who helps pregnant women with heavy luggage even when you're tired and your shift is almost over. Felix looked down at their joined hands, struck by how right it felt. What about Jamie? How would this work with him? We'll figure it out together, Lucia said. Day shift means you'd have evenings and weekends with him. And honestly, having you as a partner means I'd have someone I trust completely to help me navigate being a working mother. Your experience. With Jamie, your understanding of how to balance work and parenting, that's exactly what I'm gonna need. Felix was quiet for a long moment, and Lucia could see him weighing everything they'd discussed. Finally, he spoke. If I say yes, and I'm leaning toward yes, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if this doesn't work out, if I'm not good at the business side of things, or if our partnership becomes complicated, we won't lose each other again. Promise me that even if the professional relationship fails, we'll find a way to stay in each other's lives. Lucia's eyes filled with tears again. Fee, I've been looking for you for 23 years without even realizing it. Wild horses couldn't drag me away from you now. Felix smiled, the first genuine, unreserved smile Lucia had seen from him all night. In that case, Lucy Goose, I think it's time I came home. The acceptance hung in the air between them for a moment that felt both eternal and fleeting. Then Lucia did something that surprised them both. She laughed, not a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle, but a deep, joyful laugh that seemed to bubble up from a place that had been waiting 23 years to express this particular happiness. "What's so funny?" Felix asked, though he was smiling too. Caught up in her infectious joy. "I was just thinking," Lucia said, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes, "about how I've been practicing this conversation in my head for months. I had speeches prepared about business projections and partnership agreements and professional development plans. I never imagined it would end with us sitting in a hotel hallway at midnight, calling each other by our childhood nicknames." Felix chuckled. "Life has a way of ignoring our carefully made plans, doesn't it?" "The best parts of life certainly do," Lucia agreed. She shifted in her chair, one hand moving to support her lower back. "You know what? I'm tired of sitting in this hallway talking about the past. Let me show you something." She stood slowly, Felix immediately reaching out to steady her. "Show me what?" "Your inheritance," she said with a mischievous smile that reminded him suddenly of the 4-year-old Lucy he remembered. "Come on." Felix gathered up the letters and photographs, carefully placing them back in the folder, and followed Lucia down the hallway. Instead of heading toward the elevator or stairs, she led him to a door he'd passed countless times but never paid much attention to. It was unmarked, painted the same cream color as the walls, and he'd always assumed it was a utility closet. Lucia pulled a key from her purse and unlocked the door, revealing a narrow staircase that led upward. "This is the private access to the penthouse level," she explained. "My father had it installed so the family could come and go without disturbing hotel operations." As they climbed the stairs, slowly, given Lucia's condition, Felix felt like he was ascending into a different world. The staircase was carpeted in deep burgundy, with photographs lining the walls. In the dim lighting, he could make out images of the hotel through the decades, staff celebrations, distinguished guests, and what appeared to be family moments. "There," Lucia said, pausing halfway up and pointing to one of the photographs. "That's us." Felix leaned closer and saw a picture he didn't remember being taken. It showed his father and Lucia's father standing behind a reception desk, both wearing suits and formal smiles. But in the foreground, sitting on the floor with their backs to the camera, were two youngsters, a boy of about 8 and a girl of about 4, building what appeared to be an elaborate structure out of small blocks. "Hotel building blocks," Lucia explained. "My father had them specially made, little wooden pieces shaped like beds and dressers and front desk counters. You were teaching me how to design a hotel lobby." Felix stared at the photograph, another piece of his past clicking into place. "I remember those blocks. You wanted to make a hotel for dinosaurs." "Because dinosaurs were big and needed big beds," Lucia said, laughing. "You were so patient with my ridiculous architectural demands." They continued up the stairs, and Felix found himself studying each photograph with new eyes. What he'd thought was just the history of a hotel was actually the history of two families whose lives had been intertwined in ways he'd never understood. At the top of the stairs, Lucia unlocked another door, and they stepped into what was clearly a private residence. But it wasn't the cold, impersonal space Felix might have expected from a hotel penthouse. It was warm and lived in, with comfortable furniture, bookshelves lined with well-read volumes, and personal photographs on every surface. "Welcome to my home," Lucia said. "And if you accept the partnership, it's your home too, if you want it to be." Felix looked around, taking in the space. One wall was entirely windows, offering a panoramic view of Millbrook Valley. The furniture was an eclectic mix of antique pieces that clearly had sentimental value and modern additions chosen for comfort rather than style. It felt like a place where people actually lived, not a showcase. "There's something specific I want to show you," Lucia said, leading him toward what appeared to be a home office. "My father's study. I've kept it exactly as it was when he passed away." The study was a warm, masculine space with dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a large desk positioned to take advantage of the window view. But what caught Felix's attention immediately was the wall behind the desk, which was covered with photographs, documents, and what appeared to be architectural drawings. "It's a timeline," Lucia explained, following his gaze. "The history of Cedar Heights Hotel, but also the history of the people who made it special." Felix walked closer and realized that the display was organized chronologically. Early photographs showed the hotel's construction in the 1920s, followed by images of its evolution through the decades. But woven throughout the business history were personal moments, staff celebrations, guest testimonials, family milestones, and there, in a section labeled "The Future," were photographs of Felix's father at various stages of his career at the hotel, accompanied by what appeared to be succession planning documents and architectural sketches for hotel improvements. "Your father and mine spent hours in this room," Lucia said softly, "planning not just the day-to-day operations, but the long-term vision for this place. They dreamed of expanding the conference facilities, adding a spa, creating packages for families with young ones. They wanted to make Cedar Heights a destination, not just a stopping point." Felix studied a detailed sketch labeled "Daniel's Vision, Family Hospitality Center." It showed plans for a play area for youngsters, family suites with connecting rooms, and what appeared to be a small library with comfortable reading nooks. "He drew this?" Felix asked, recognizing his father's careful handwriting in the margin. "Notes. He drew most of these," Lucia confirmed. "Your father had an amazing ability to envision what guests needed before they knew they needed it. That family center design, he came up with it after watching you and me play in the lobby and realizing that the hotel industry wasn't really designed with families in mind." Felix traced his finger along one of the sketches, overwhelmed by this tangible evidence of his father's vision and creativity. "Why didn't they build any of this?" "They were planning to start construction the year after your father's promotion. To partner," Lucia said. "After the accident, my father lost heart for expansion. He said the ideas belonged to Daniel, and it wouldn't be right to build them without him." She walked over to the desk and opened the top drawer, pulling out a thick folder. "But I think it's time to revisit those plans, if you're willing." Felix opened the folder and found dozens of detailed drawings, business proposals, and market research documents, all in his father's handwriting. As he read through them, he realized that his father hadn't just been an employee with good ideas. He'd been a true visionary who understood hospitality on a level that went far beyond providing clean rooms and efficient service. "This is incredible," Felix said, looking up at Lucia. "Some of these concepts are ahead of their time even now. This idea for a community kitchen where guests can cook their own meals if they want to, that's revolutionary. Your father understood that for some people, travel isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Business travelers missing their families, people visiting relatives in the hospital, families relocating for work. He wanted Cedar Heights to feel like a home away from home for people who really needed that comfort. Felix set the folder down and looked around the study again, seeing it now as a shrine to unrealized dreams and interrupted partnerships. "Lucia, if we do this, if we become partners, I want to honor both of our fathers by making these visions real, even if it means completely reimagining what Cedar Heights could be, especially if it means that," Felix said firmly, Your father and mine were interrupted before they could finish what they started. Maybe it's time for their youngsters to pick up where they left off." Lucia smiled, and in that moment, Felix could see both the 4-year-old girl he'd once known and the capable businesswoman she'd become. "There's one more thing I want to show you," she said, walking to a closet in the corner of the study. She opened it and pulled out a small box, which she set on the desk between them. "My father left specific instructions that if you ever came back and accepted the partnership, I was to give you this." Felix opened the box and found a set of keys, old-fashioned brass keys that looked like they belonged to something important. Beneath them was a note in handwriting he now recognized as Lucia's father's. "For Felix Cole, the keys to the future Daniel dreamed of building." "What do they open?" Felix asked. "The original master suite on the 2nd floor," Lucia said. "It's been locked since my father's death, but it was always meant to be the partner's residence. If you want it, it's yours. Jamie could have his own room. You'd be close to operations but have your privacy and..." She paused, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. And you'd be close enough that when this baby comes, I'd have someone I trust nearby. Someone who understands that sometimes the most important part of hospitality is just being there when people need you." Felix closed his fingers around the keys, feeling their weight both literally and symbolically. They represented not just a place to live, but a commitment to rebuilding something that had been broken, to finishing something that had been left incomplete, to creating something new while honoring what had come before. "Lucy," he said, using her childhood nickname naturally now, "I think we're about to build something amazing together." The brass keys felt warm in Felix's palm, as if they carried the heat of all the dreams and plans that had been waiting 23 years to be unlocked. He stood in the study that had been the planning center for a future that never came to pass, surrounded by evidence of his father's vision and his own forgotten childhood, holding the literal keys to a life he'd never dared to imagine. "I need to call my grandmother," Felix said suddenly, looking up at Lucia with an expression that was part wonder, part overwhelming gratitude. "She's 87 years old and she's the only family I've had since the accident. She needs to know about this, about you, about the hotel, about everything." Lucia nodded, understanding immediately. "Of course, use the phone here, or we can go somewhere more private if you'd prefer." "No, here is perfect," Felix said, settling into the chair behind the desk. "If we're going to be partners, you should hear this conversation anyway." He dialed the familiar number, even though it was well past midnight. His grandmother had always been a light sleeper, and she'd told him countless times to call her whenever he needed to, regardless of the hour. "Felix?" Her voice came through clear and alert, with the tone that meant she'd been awake anyway, probably reading one of her mystery novels. "Hi, Grandma. I know it's late, but something incredible has happened, and I needed to talk to you. Are you all right? Is Jamie okay?" "We're both fine. Better than fine, actually. Grandma, I'm at Cedar Heights Hotel, and I've just learned some things about Dad that I think you'll want to hear." There was a pause, and when his grandmother spoke again, her voice carried a different quality, softer, more careful. "What kind of things, sweetheart?" Felix looked across the desk at Lucia, who nodded encouragingly. "Grandma, did you know that Dad was planning to become a partner in this hotel, that the owner considered him family?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Oh, Felix, you found them." The response surprised him. "You knew?" "I knew your father was more than just an employee there. He used to come home from work talking about his hotel family, about plans for the future, about how he was learning to run a business from someone he respected more than anyone else in the world. But after the accident..." Her voice trailed off. "After the accident, what?" "After the accident, when I was going through your parents' papers, I found some documents, partnership agreements, investment plans, letters from Mr. Stone about your father's future with the company. I also found a trust fund document with your name on it. Felix felt his world shift again. You found them? Why didn't you ever tell me? Because you were 8 years old and devastated, his grandmother said gently. You'd lost your parents. You were living in a new place with an old woman you barely knew, and you were having nightmares every night about being alone. The last thing you needed was to hear about opportunities you'd lost, along with everything else. Felix leaned back in the chair, processing this revelation. But later, when I got older, by the time you were old enough to understand, you'd built a life that didn't include those possibilities. You'd never mentioned the hotel, never talked about wanting to work in hospitality. I thought it might be more painful than helpful to tell you about roads you could have taken but didn't. Lucia reached across the desk and gently took Felix's free hand, understanding that this conversation was opening wounds that had been carefully covered for decades. Grandma, Felix said, the owner's daughter is here with me. Her name is Lucia, and I knew her when I was a kid. We used to play together at the hotel, little Lucy. His grandmother's voice brightened immediately. Oh my goodness, Felix, is that really her? You remember her? Of course I remember her. Your father used to come home with stories about the little girl who followed you around the hotel like a shadow. He said she adored you, that you were like the big brother she'd never had. He used to joke that you two would probably end up running that hotel together someday. Felix looked at Lucia, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Grandma, that's exactly what's happening. She's offered me a full partnership in Cedar Heights Hotel. Equal ownership, equal responsibility. She wants me to help her rebuild it into everything our fathers dreamed it could be. The line was quiet for so long that Felix wondered if the call had been disconnected. Finally, his grandmother spoke, and her voice was thick with emotion. Felix, your father would be so proud, not just of the opportunity, but of the man you've become that would earn such an offer. Tell me about her, about Lucy. What's she like? Now? Felix looked across the desk at Lucia, seeing her through new eyes. She's remarkable, Grandma. She's brilliant and kind, and she's been carrying our family's story all these years without me even knowing it. She's pregnant and doing it alone, and she's trying to honor her parents' legacy while building something new. He paused, struggling to find the right words. She's someone you could build a life with, his grandmother finished softly. The observation hung in the air between them, and Felix realized that his grandmother had identified something he'd been feeling but hadn't yet acknowledged. Over the course of this one extraordinary night, he'd gone from seeing Lucia as a mysterious pregnant guest to recognizing her as the little girl from his childhood, to understanding her as a potential business partner. But somewhere in that progression, he'd also begun to see her as something else entirely. Grandma, there's something else I need to ask you. If I take this partnership, it means moving Jamie and me into the hotel. It means changing everything about our lives. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess this up? Felix Cole, his grandmother said with the firm tone she used when she was about to impart important wisdom. You have been taking care of other people since you were 8 years old. You took care of me when I was too proud to ask for help. You've taken care of every guest who's walked through that hotel. You've taken care of Jamie through circumstances that would have broken a lesser man. The question isn't whether you're ready to take care of a business. The question is whether you're ready to let someone else help take care of you. Felix felt tears beginning to form in his eyes. What do you mean? I mean that from what you've told me about Lucy, she's not just offering you a job or even a partnership. She's offering you a family. And sweetheart, you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to have someone share the load. Felix looked at Lucia, who was listening to his side of the conversation with an expression of gentle understanding. How do I know if I'm making the right decision? You ask yourself one question, his grandmother said. Not whether it's safe, not whether it's practical, not whether you deserve it. You ask yourself whether it feels like coming home. Felix considered the question, thinking about everything that had happened in the past few hours. The way Lucia had trusted him with her story, the way he'd felt walking through the hotel with new understanding of his place in its history, the way his hands had felt steady and sure when he'd held the keys to his future, the way Lucia had looked at him when she'd called him by his childhood nickname. "It does," he said quietly. "It feels exactly like coming home. Coming home." "Then you have your answer," his grandmother said. "And Felix, I want you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't just accept this partnership out of obligation to your father's memory or gratitude for the opportunity. Promise me you'll accept it because you want to build something beautiful with someone who sees you for who you really are." Felix looked across the desk at Lucia, who was watching him with eyes full of hope and understanding, and something that looked very much like affection. "I promise, Grandma." "Good. Now put Lucy on the phone. I want to talk to that little girl, who's all grown up." Felix handed the phone to Lucia, who took it with slightly trembling hands. "Hello, Mrs. Cole, this is Lucy." "Hello, sweetheart. First, let me tell you how sorry I am for your loss. Your parents were wonderful people who raised a remarkable daughter." "Thank you," Lucia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Second, I want you to know that Felix is the finest man I've ever known. And if you're trusting him with your family's legacy, you're making the right choice. But more than that, if you're trusting him with your heart, you're making the right choice there too." Lucia's eyes met Felix's across the desk, and in that moment, both of them understood that this conversation had moved far beyond business partnerships and childhood memories. They were talking about building a life together, not just a business, but a real partnership that could grow into something neither of them had dared to hope for. "Mrs. Cole," Lucia said softly, "I want you to know that I'll take very good care of him, both of them, Felix and Jamie." "I know you will, dear, and they'll take very good care of you too. Now let me talk to my grandson one more time." Lucia handed the phone back to Felix, who was smiling through his tears. "Yes, Grandma. Felix, I love you. Your parents would be proud. And tomorrow morning, I want you to call me and tell me all about your new life." "I will. I love you too, Grandma." After he hung up, Felix and Lucia sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the weight of the conversation and the decisions that had been made. "So," Lucia said finally, "are you ready to change everything?" Felix stood up, walked around the desk, and extended his hand to help her to her feet. "Lucy, I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it until tonight." 3 months later, Cedar Heights Hotel was buzzing with an energy that longtime staff members hadn't seen in years. What had begun as a simple partnership between two people reconnecting had rippled outward, touching every aspect of the hotel's operation and the broader Millbrook Valley community in ways neither Felix nor Lucia had anticipated. The transformation had started immediately after Felix's official transition to guest experience manager and co-owner. The first change was subtle but profound. The staff noticed that Felix, who had always been respected for his quiet competence during the night shift, now moved through the hotel with a confidence and authority that seemed to unlock potential in everyone around him. "It's like watching someone step into their true self," remarked Mrs. Patterson, the head of housekeeping, who had worked at Cedar Heights for over 15 years. She was speaking to Sarah Chen, the new assistant manager Felix had hired after a thorough search for someone who shared their vision of hospitality as genuine care rather than mere service. "Have you seen the guest satisfaction scores from last month?" Sarah asked, pulling up the reports on her tablet. "We're at 97% positive feedback, with 60% of respondents specifically mentioning staff members by name. That's unheard of in the industry. Mrs. Patterson nodded, folding towels with the efficient movements of long practice. Mr. Felix has a way of bringing out the best in people. Last week I saw him spend 20 minutes with Marcus from maintenance, teaching him how to properly introduce himself to guests instead of just mumbling, "Excuse me," when he needs to work in their rooms. Now Marcus has guests asking for him specifically when they need help with anything. The changes weren't limited to staff interactions. Felix had implemented his father's long-dormant vision for the family hospitality center, converting an underutilized conference room into a space specifically designed for traveling families. The room now featured a small kitchenette where parents could prepare simple meals, comfortable seating areas where youngsters could play while adults worked, and a quiet corner with rocking chairs for parents with infants. The community kitchen concept had been even more successful than anyone had expected. What had started as a simple amenity, allowing guests to cook their own meals if they preferred, had evolved into something much more meaningful. Business travelers would often gather in the evening to share cooking duties and stories, creating impromptu dinner parties among strangers. Families visiting relatives in the hospital found comfort in preparing familiar foods together during difficult times. "We had a guest last week," Felix was telling Lucia as they reviewed the morning's check-in schedule, "who was here for his mother's surgery. He was so stressed about everything that he hadn't eaten a real meal in 3 days. I found him in the community kitchen at midnight, trying to make his mother's soup recipe because it was the only thing that made him feel connected to something positive." Lucia, now visibly pregnant at 7 months, looked up from her laptop where she was finalizing the marketing materials for their new family packages. "Did you help him?" "I sat with him while he cooked, and we talked about his mother, about how food can be a way of showing love even when we feel helpless." By the time he finished making the soup, he was calmer, more centered. He told me later that night in the kitchen was the first time he'd felt hopeful since his mother's diagnosis. These kinds of stories had become commonplace at Cedar Heights. Word was spreading through Millbrook Valley, and beyond that, something special was happening at the old hotel. Local families had begun hosting celebration dinners in the community kitchen. The nearby children's hospital had partnered with Cedar Heights to provide temporary housing for families of young patients, with special rates and access to the family center. The ripple effect extended into Felix's personal life as well. Jamie, now spending weekday evenings and full weekends at the hotel, had become something of a mascot for the staff and a favorite among guests. His natural curiosity and enthusiasm reminded everyone why they had chosen hospitality as their profession. "Dad, Mrs. Patterson taught me how to fold fitted sheets," Jamie announced one afternoon, bursting into Felix's office with the barely contained energy of a 6-year-old who had learned something new. "And Marcus showed me how the elevator works, and Miss Sarah said I can help with the welcome packets, if I'm very careful." Felix smiled, watching his son's excitement. The move to the hotel had been the best decision he'd ever made for both of them. Jamie was thriving in an environment where he was surrounded by caring adults, and where his natural helpfulness was channeled into meaningful activities. More importantly, Felix was finally able to be present for the everyday moments of his son's life, helping with homework in the family center, reading bedtime stories in their apartment on the 2nd floor, teaching Jamie about responsibility by involving him in age-appropriate hotel tasks. But perhaps the most significant ripple effect was the way Felix and Lucia's partnership had begun to evolve into something deeper and more personal. It had happened gradually, naturally, without drama or complicated declarations. Working side by side every day, sharing meals in the community kitchen, making decisions together about everything from staff schedules to paint colors, they had discovered that their compatibility extended far beyond childhood friendship and business acumen. The staff had noticed it first, the way Felix would automatically adjust his stride to match Lucia's slower pace as her pregnancy progressed. how Lucia would save the most interesting guest stories to share with Felix during their evening planning meetings, the comfortable silences that had replaced their initial professional formality. "They're perfect for each other," Mrs. Patterson had confided to Sarah during one of their morning coffee breaks. "He takes care of everyone, but she takes care of him. You can see it in the way his shoulders relax when she's in the room, the way she smiles when she hears his laugh from down the hallway." The transformation of their relationship became evident to the broader community during the hotel's fall harvest celebration, an event that had been Felix's idea and Lucia's enthusiastic execution. They had invited the entire Millbrook Valley community to an evening of local food, live music, and storytelling in the hotel's gardens. As Felix stood before the gathered crowd, thanking them for their support and sharing the story of how Cedar Heights was becoming not just a hotel, but a community gathering place, Lucia watched from the side with an expression of unmistakable love and pride. When he concluded his remarks by thanking "my partner in everything, Lucia Stone," and she joined him at the front, the applause that erupted had less to do with their business success and more to do with the recognition that the community was witnessing something rare. Two people who had found their way to each other and were using that happiness to create something beautiful for everyone around them. Later that evening, as they cleaned up from the celebration, Felix found Lucia sitting in one of the garden chairs, looking tired but content. "How are you feeling?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. "Like we're building something that's bigger than either of us could have created alone," she said, her hand resting on her rounded belly. "Felix, can I tell you something? Always. When I first inherited this place, I thought success meant getting back to where my parents had left off. But what we've built together, it's not restoration, it's creation. We're not just continuing their legacy, we're creating our own." Felix reached over and took her hand, marveling at how right it felt. "Lucy, I need to tell you something too." "What?" "I think I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I fell in love with you 3 months ago when you trusted me with your story, but I'm just now brave enough to say it out loud." Lucia's smile was radiant in the evening light. "Fee, I fell in love with you 23 years ago when you taught me to tie my shoes. I've just been waiting for you to come home so I could tell you." As they sat together in the garden of the hotel that had brought them back to each other, surrounded by the evidence of all the lives they were touching and the community they were building, Felix understood that some stories don't end. They just keep expanding, creating ever-widening circles of connection and care. The harvest celebration had been more than a community event. It had been a declaration that Cedar Heights Hotel was no longer just a place to stay. It was a place where people came to remember what it felt like to be cared for, to belong, to be part of something meaningful. And at the center of it all were two people who had found their way back to each other and discovered that the love they were building could be big enough to embrace an entire community. 1 year later, on a crisp autumn morning that painted Millbrook Valley in shades of golden amber, Cedar Heights Hotel was preparing for its most important celebration yet. The annual Homecoming Festival had become a tradition that drew families from across the region. But this year's event held special significance for Felix and Lucia. It marked the first anniversary of their partnership and the public announcement of their engagement. Felix stood in the lobby, adjusting his tie with hands that were steady despite the magnitude of the day ahead. The space around him hummed with the organized chaos of preparation, but it was a different kind of energy than the hotel had known in its earlier incarnations. This wasn't the sterile efficiency of corporate hospitality or the desperate scrambling of a struggling business. This was the warm, purposeful bustle of a place that had found its soul. "Dad, you look nervous," Jamie observed, appearing at Felix's side with the uncanny ability 7-year-olds have for detecting adult emotions. He was wearing his junior concierge badge, a role Felix and Lucia had created for him that involved greeting guests and helping with small tasks that made him feel important while teaching him responsibility. "Just excited," Felix replied, ruffling his son's hair. "Today's a big day for all of us. Because you and Lucia are getting married. Because we're celebrating what happens when people choose to build something beautiful together," Felix corrected gently. Over the past year, he'd learned to speak to Jamie about complex emotions and relationships with honesty rather than simplification. Marriage is just one way of making that choice official. Jamie considered this with the seriousness he applied to all matters of importance. Like how you and Lucia chose to make the hotel a place where people feel loved. Felix felt his heart swell with pride at his son's understanding. Exactly like that, Lucia appeared from the direction of the conference room they'd converted into the festival's coordination center, moving with the careful grace of someone in her final month of pregnancy. She was radiant in a way that went beyond the traditional glow of expectant mothers. She carried herself with the confidence of a woman who had found her purpose and was living it fully. "The Hendersons just arrived," she announced, referring to the elderly couple who had been among their first repeat guests after the transformation. Mrs. Henderson brought 3 photo albums to share, and Mr. Henderson is insisting on helping Marcus set up the sound system. Felix smiled. The Hendersons had become unofficial ambassadors for Cedar Heights, sharing their story of how the hotel had become their refuge during his battle with Alzheimer's. Their monthly visits had evolved into extended stays, where Mrs. Henderson would teach cooking classes in the community kitchen, while Mr. Henderson, during his good days, would share stories of his 40-year career as a carpenter with anyone who would listen. "Have you seen the guest registry for today?" Lucia asked, pulling out her tablet. "We have families coming from 4 different states. The Williamses are driving from North Carolina because their daughter heard about our family center program. The Kowalskis are coming from Michigan because their son with autism feels safe here." These stories had become commonplace, but they never lost their power to move Felix. The hotel's reputation had spread organically, not through marketing campaigns or travel website algorithms, but through word-of-mouth testimonials from families who had found something they hadn't known they were looking for. "There's something else," Lucia continued, her voice taking on a tone Felix had learned to recognize as barely contained excitement. "I just got a call from the State Tourism Board. They want to feature Cedar Heights in their new campaign about destination hospitality. They're calling what we've created here a model for the future of family travel." Felix shook his head in wonder. "A year ago, I was mopping floors and trying to stay invisible. Now we're being held up as an industry model." "You weren't trying to stay invisible," Lucia corrected, moving closer to him with the natural ease that had developed between them. "You were waiting for the right moment to become visible. There's a difference." As if summoned by their conversation, Mrs. Patterson appeared with Sarah Chen, both carrying clipboards and wearing the expressions of people who had everything under control. "The local news crew just arrived," Sarah announced. "They want to interview you both about the hotel's transformation and what it means for the community." Felix felt a familiar flutter of nervousness at the prospect of being interviewed, but Lucia's hand found his, and the anxiety settled into manageable excitement. "We'll be right there," Lucia said. "But first, Felix, there's something I want to show you." She led him to the wall near the front desk, where they'd created a legacy gallery, a display of photographs and stories that honored both the hotel's history and its ongoing evolution. But today, there was a new addition, a framed photograph of Felix's father and Lucia's father standing together in the same lobby where Felix now worked, both men smiling with the confidence of people building something they believed in. Beneath the photograph was a brass plaque that read, "In memory of Daniel Cole and Robert Stone, who dreamed of a place where strangers could become family and service could become love. Their vision lives on in every welcome, every kindness, and every moment of connection shared within these walls." "The staff wanted to surprise you with this," Lucia explained. Mrs. Patterson found the photograph in some old hotel archives, and everyone contributed to having the plaque made. Felix stared at the memorial, overwhelmed by the realization that his father's legacy was not just being honored, but actively lived every single day. "They look so young," he said finally. "They were young," Lucia agreed, "but they were building something that would outlast them, just like we are." The day unfolded in a series of moments that would later blur together in Felix's memory as a single, sustained note of joy. The festival drew over 300 people to the hotel grounds, families who had stayed there, community members who had embraced Cedar Heights as their own, staff members and their families, and visitors who had simply heard about the celebration and wanted to be part of something special. During the afternoon program, Felix and Lucia shared the story of their reunion and partnership, but more importantly, they talked about the philosophy that had guided the hotel's transformation. "We learned that hospitality isn't really about providing services," Felix told the gathered crowd. "It's about creating space for people to be their best selves, to connect with each other, to feel valued and cared for in a world that often makes us feel invisible. And we learned that love, whether it's romantic love, family love, or the love we show to strangers, isn't a finite resource," Lucia added. "The more we give away, the more we have." This hotel has taught us that when you create a place where people feel genuinely welcomed, they take that feeling with them and share it with others. As the day wound down and the last of the festival guests departed, Felix found himself standing, once again in the lobby where this all began. But now, instead of mopping floors in solitude, he was surrounded by the people who had become his chosen family. Lucia, Jamie, the staff who had embraced the vision, and the extended community that had made Cedar Heights their own. Jamie was asleep in one of the lobby's comfortable chairs, exhausted from a day of junior concierge duties. Mrs. Patterson was directing the cleanup with her usual efficient kindness. Sarah Chen was already making notes for next year's festival, and Lucia was sitting in the chair next to Jamie, one hand resting on her belly where their baby, due any day now, was presumably also resting after the excitement. "Lucy," Felix said, settling into the chair on her other side. "Yes, Fee, do you remember what you asked me that first night, whether I liked working here?" She smiled. "You said you did, as long as the paychecks cleared and you could do your job without drama." "I had no idea what I was talking about," Felix said, laughing softly. "I thought work was something you endured to support the life you wanted to live. I didn't know that work could be the life you wanted to live." "And now?" Felix looked around. The lobby, at Jamie sleeping peacefully, at the staff who had become family, at the legacy gallery honoring their fathers, at the woman who had brought him home to himself. "Now I know that the most extraordinary life is built from ordinary moments of choosing to care for other people. Every guest we welcome, every problem we solve, every story we listen to, it all matters. It all adds up to something bigger than any of us could create alone." Lucia reached over and took his hand. "Your father would be proud of what you've built here." "What we've built," Felix corrected. "And I think he'd be proud that his son learned the most important lesson of all, which is that home isn't a place you go to when work is done. Home is what you create when you find work that feeds your soul and people who believe in the same things you do. as they sat together in the gentle quiet of the lobby, with their son sleeping nearby and their unborn baby moving gently in Lucia's belly. Felix understood that his story had come full circle. He had started as a man helping a stranger with her luggage and discovered that sometimes the people we're meant to help are actually the ones destined to help us find our way home. Cedar Heights Hotel had become more than a business or even a legacy. It had become proof that love, kindness, and genuine care for others can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. And at its heart were two people who had learned that the greatest success isn't measured in profits or recognition, but in the number of lives you touch and the amount of love you leave behind. The story of Felix and Lucia reminds us that sometimes the most important journeys begin with the smallest acts of kindness. A willingness to help a stranger with heavy luggage can lead to discovering that we were never really strangers at all. We were family waiting to find each other. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.